He shuffled in, hands bound, his weathered face cast down as the court official requested his name. His voice was barely a whisper, shaky when he answered, "Arthur Bell, Gunnery Sergeant, U.S. Army. You just never know what a day in court will bring, do you?" Nobody in that room saw this coming. Later, as Judge Eleanor Vance was reading his file, her hands stilled and her face went white. That name, it struck her. This was the soldier who'd rescued her own brother in Kandahar years ago, then simply vanished. Arthur Bell, all 71 years of him, just sat there collapsed on the hard bench, his honor unseen by most. An old army coat, much too large, draped his frame, and under the harsh courtroom lights, every line etched by decades of sorrow on his face seemed to deepen. He used to wear a decorated uniform, covered in medals. Today, though, he just sat there in donated clothes as the bailiff announced, Case 92C, City of Riverbend versus Arthur Bell. The charges were for disturbing the peace, trespassing, and resisting arrest. He stood up, slow and stiff, obviously aching all over. Time and old, untreated injuries had worn him thin. Vietnam, and then later, Iraq. He carried all those wounds, the visible and the hidden ones, silently for so many years. "Mr. Bell," the DA began. The DA, a young man, polished and slick, had his speech ready. "He's been warned several times about loitering behind the Elm Avenue diner. The owner has filed 4 complaints this month alone." But what the DA didn't say, what he skipped right over, was that Arthur never begged, never asked for a single handout. He'd just sit by an alley vent, trying to find a little warmth when the winter night bit hard. Then the officer gave his testimony, saying he found Arthur behind the diner around 11:50 p.m. and claimed Arthur refused to vacate when ordered. But Arthur hadn't really refused. He'd quietly asked for just 10 more minutes to finish half a sandwich a kind cook had slipped him. It seemed his words hadn't mattered back then, and they still didn't now. "Your Honor," the DA pushed on, "this is his 4th citation this year. We recommend 45 days of community service and a no trespass order for the downtown area." That kind of order would be a disaster for Arthur. It would bar him from the Oak Street mission, the only warm place he had left to go. It would shut him out from church meals. It would leave him utterly alone outside during the very coldest stretch of the year. "Mr. Bell," Judge Eleanor Vance finally addressed him, her voice even, "do you have legal representation here today?" Arthur just shook his head. His court-appointed public defender had been pulled into another courtroom on some urgent business. "Would you like to speak on your own behalf, then?" she asked, peering at him over her glasses. Arthur cleared his throat, and his voice came out low and rough. "No excuses, ma'am. I was just cold." The judge pressed him. "But why that particular location?" Her expression was unreadable, but her tone seemed edged with something more than just judicial curiosity. Arthur hesitated for a moment. "Sal, the cook there, he leaves food out sometimes. I've known him since he was just a boy. His father served with me." "Gulf War," Arthur added. "And your own service?" the judge asked again, which was breaking standard procedure. "U.S. Army," Arthur replied. And you could see him straighten up just a little, a flicker of old pride. 1973 to 993. Gunnery Sergeant, 3rd Brigade, 4th Infantry, Afghanistan. The words landed with a certain weight in the quiet courtroom. It was decades of buried pride finding breath for the first time in years. She made a quick mark on the file, then kept reading, and you could tell the months deep in Arthur Bell's military history gave her serious pause. Before she could say another word, the courtroom doors at the back opened wide. A sharply dressed man in a tailored charcoal suit strode in, walking with clear purpose. He reached the defense table where Arthur sat, set down his briefcase, and faced the bench. "Your Honor, my name is Benjamin Hayes. I've just been retained to represent Mr. Bell. I do apologize for the abruptness of my appearance." Arthur turned completely confused. He hadn't called any lawyer. He certainly couldn't afford one, especially not a man wearing expensive cufflinks and polished leather shoes. "This is highly unusual, Mr. Hayes," Judge Vance stated, watching the lawyer carefully. "The court was not informed of any new representation for Mr. Bell." "It was a last-minute development, Your Honor," Hayes replied, calm and composed. "I respectfully request a brief recess to speak with my client." Judge Vance studied them both for a moment, her face giving nothing away. "This court will recess for 20 minutes, she finally said, rising and stepping briskly into her chambers. Arthur immediately leaned toward the stranger beside him. "I don't have the money for this," Arthur whispered. Hayes replied softly, "You won't need it." My firm, Dalton, Hayes and Vance, is taking this on pro bono. Arthur furrowed his brow at that last name. Vance, that was the judge's name. Exactly like the judge, Hayes confirmed. Judge Eleanor Vance removed glasses, hands unsteady. Decades on the bench taught control, but nothing prepared her for this. Can't be the same man, she whispered. But file details were precise. From a drawer, she pulled a faded photo, younger, by her brother, Lieutenant Samuel Vance. In Army uniform, arm on her shoulder. They smiled wide, hopeful at his commissioning. Beside it, Samuel's last letter from Afghanistan, edges worn from grief, described a firefight near Kandahar. His letter said they were pinned down. Then Staff Sergeant Miller charged into gunfire, dragging a soldier to safety. Without Miller, Samuel wrote, none of us survived. 2 weeks later, an IED killed Samuel. Eleanor remembered the funeral, folded flag, parents' heartbreak. A young soldier approached. Your son saved my life, he'd said. Sergeant Miller carried me. He never finished. No need. She never forgot David Miller. Years ago, she tried finding him to hear of Samuel's end. The military said he'd redeployed, then discharged with severe PTSD, TBI. Now, 2 decades later, Arthur Bell sat in her court, a stranger only to others. A knock. Benjamin Hayes entered, concerned. Eleanor, what is this? Her late husband, Robert's law partner and family friend, he called her Eleanor. It's him, Ben, she said, voice low, nodding to the photo. The soldier who saved Samuel in Kandahar. Ben understood. The homeless vet? Arthur Bell, he's David Miller. The Miller you sought? Eleanor nodded. Record confirms it. Kandahar 2007. Same unit. Bronze Star for the action Samuel described. Does he know you? Ben asked. I doubt it. I married Robert, took his name. Bell wouldn't know me now. She took a breath. Oh, Ben, how does a hero like that end up this way? How can a hero be alone, on trial for staying warm? Ben shook his head. He's endured more than most. Severe PTSD from his last deployment. Wife left him overseas. Benefits caught in red tape. Did construction for years, until injuries made it impossible. Then job loss, eviction, streets. Eleanor closed her eyes. Samuel's letter echoed. Miller was the best of us, El. Risked everything for his brothers. If I'm half as good, I'm lucky. Ben spoke gently. You could recuse. No one would question it. No, she said firmly, resolve clear. I won't let him disappear again. You know the ethical risks. I do, she said, straight buttoning. But there are obligations too, especially for those who gave all. When Judge Vance returned, composed, but a slight hand tremor with her papers was visible to some. Mr. Hayes, she said formally, your client's decision? Hayes rose. Yes, Your Honor. Dismissal. Bell wasn't trespassing, just surviving the freeze. Diner staff gave implied permission. Prosecutor began to object. Judge Vance raised a hand. He stopped. I have questions for the defendant, she said to Bell. Mr. Bell, your file. Kandahar, 2007, correct? Bell straightened. Yes, ma'am. 3rd Brigade, 4th Infantry. April 23rd, an op near the city's west edge. Bell looked confused. Yes, ma'am. Escorting supplies. We were ambushed. That firefight, she pressed. Did you rescue Lieutenant Samuel Vance under fire? Courtroom stilled. Bell's eyes narrowed. The name. Memories stirred. Vance, he said softly. Yes, young lieutenant. Brave. Arthur Bell's voice was distant, lost in memory. Took a hit, trying to get a wounded medic out of the fire. I got to him, pulled him to cover, but he just kept yelling at me to help the others, to leave him. He paused. In the viewing area, an older man with silver hair, wearing a Marine League jacket, leaned in, his focus intense. Judge Eleanor Vance, her face a careful mask, though her insides churned, asked, And Lieutenant Samuel Vance, Mr. Bell? What happened to him? Arthur's reply was quiet. We got him on the evac chopper. Heard he made it to Germany. But then, a few weeks on, his convoy struck an IED. His voice cracked. For years, I've asked myself if I just postponed things. Made it worse, maybe. Before another word, the silver-haired Army veteran in the gallery shot to his feet. That's him, he called out, pointing straight at Arthur. That's Gunnery Sergeant Bell. I was there that day. He pulled 6 of us out. A murmur went through the courtroom. Judge Vance rapped her gavel, a single, firm tap, yet it lacked its usual sharp authority. Order, she managed, her voice softer than normal as a strained quiet fell. Arthur Bell kept his head down, clearly uneasy with all eyes suddenly on him. The older veteran remained standing, his voice unwavering. Your Honor, forgive the interruption, but I was with him. Bell took enemy fire getting that lieutenant clear. The prosecutor then rose. Your Honor, with all due respect, Mr. Bell's service record, however distinguished, isn't pertinent to these charges. Judge Vance cut him off, her tone suddenly sharp. This court strongly disagrees. It is profoundly relevant. She set her gavel down with deliberation. This court will recess for 10 minutes. She glanced at the bailiff. Ensure Mr. Bell remains here, please. As she began to rise from the bench, she did something unusual. She paused. Her eyes found Arthur's, truly connecting with his for the first time. Mr. Bell, she said, her voice gentle, when I come back, we have things to discuss, things that go well beyond today's charges. Once inside her chambers, Judge Vance finally let her composure crumble. She pressed trembling fingers to her mouth, a gesture trying to hold back 2 decades of pent-up sorrow. After a deep, steadying breath, she reached for the phone. Colonel Thompson, this is Eleanor Vance. Yet it's been too long, but I need your help with something, and it's extremely urgent. Precisely 10 minutes later, she re-entered the courtroom, but not by herself. 3 U.S. Army soldiers walked in behind her. A full colonel, a master sergeant, and a young corporal holding a polished wooden box. A wave of whispers and surprised sounds swept through the onlookers. Seeing those uniforms, Arthur Bell rose automatically. His body was stiff, yet he stood tall, years of training overriding age. Judge Vance resumed her seat, but unusually set aside her glasses. For what felt like the first time in her career, she spoke to the courtroom not just as its judge, but as a human being. Before we continue, she announced, her voice clear and strong, I need to disclose a personal involvement in this matter. She looked right at Arthur. The Lieutenant Samuel Vance we spoke of earlier, he was my brother. Sharp intakes of breath sounded around the room. Arthur Bell's brow creased, a spark of understanding in his eyes as the air grew thick with tension. Eleanor Vance continued, 20 years back, my brother wrote to us about a gunnery sergeant who saved his life in Kandahar. He said this soldier ran through enemy fire to get to him after he was hit, then covered their unit as they evacuated. Her voice was firm, but her eyes glistened. That soldier was Gunnery Sergeant Arthur Bell. From the gallery, the same older veteran came forward. It's the truth, he affirmed. I saw it. Bell took 2 bullets getting that officer out. Judge Vance nodded slightly and continued. 2 weeks after that, my brother was killed. At his funeral, several soldiers told our family about Samuel and also about the man who gave us those extra 2 weeks with him, time we never would have had otherwise. She then faced Arthur directly. After Samuel died, I tried to find you, Mr. Bell. The Army said you'd shipped out again. Much later, I found out you'd been discharged, but no one could say where you'd gone. Arthur stood silently, a storm of feelings visible on his worn face. I never gave up looking, she told him. And now, by some twist of fate, you've come into my courtroom. She gestured to the colonel standing with Tree. This is Colonel Thompson, she announced. He was the commander of my brother's unit. He has something he'd like to say. Colonel Thompson approached the bench. Gunnery Sergeant Bell, he started, the U.S. Army has been attempting to find you for a good while. Your service record was among many reviewed as part of the Veterans Reconsideration Initiative. New information concerning your tours in Iraq and Afghanistan has led to an update of your official commendations and your benefits. The young corporal next to him stepped forward and opened the wooden box he carried. Nestled on rich blue velvet was a medal. Colonel Thompson announced, by order of the Secretary of the Army, for extraordinary bravery on April 23, 2007, the Distinguished Service Cross is awarded to Gunnery Sergeant Arthur J. Bell, United States Army. Gasps filled the court, the Army's second highest valor award after the Medal of Honor. Until recently, parts of your mission were classified, Gunnery Sergeant, Colonel Thompson went on. But your actions didn't just save Lieutenant Samuel Vance and 5 other soldiers. You stopped an ambush that nearly destroyed their entire convoy. Your Bronze Star with V device is hereby upgraded. Arthur's jaw tightened, his composure finally breaking. Must be a mistake, he murmured. Did nothing special. Just my job. No mistake, Sergeant, the colonel stated firmly. And this is long, long overdue. Then a sharp voice from the gallery. Attention on deck. The silver-haired veterans snapped to attention. Others joined them. Former soldiers, even civilians, recognizing the moment's gravity. One by one, they stood and saluted Arthur Bell until the whole room was standing. The prosecutor, too, rose, torn between courtroom rules and sheer respect. Judge Eleanor Vance, tears streaming, her voice trembling, announced, in light of these incredible developments, all charges against Gunnery Sergeant Arthur Bell are dismissed. Permanently. She struck the gavel hard. "This court is adjourned." As things quieted, the master sergeant came to Arthur with a tablet. "Sir, we've been looking for you. Your VA records needed correction. Your disability is reassessed. 100%. Service-connected, retroactive to your discharge." Arthur stared, stunned. "Meaning what exactly?" "Full back pay, sir," the master sergeant explained. "Total medical, housing aid, education benefits, whatever you need." Benjamin Hayes stepped up. "And our firm will see every bit of it through. No more runarounds, no more delays." From the courtroom's rear, Mai, the diner cook who'd left food for Arthur, came forward, eyes wet. "My dad," Sal started, voice thick, "told me about a soldier who saved his whole platoon. Said if I ever met Arthur Bell, I'd owe him my life." Sal extended a hand, tears falling. "I never knew it was you, not till just now." The prosecutor, clearly moved, walked over. "Sir, I didn't know. Please accept my deepest apologies for this case." Arthur stood, his bearing shifting, as if years of unseen burdens were lifting. Judge Vance came down from the bench, all distance gone. She stood before him, her voice steady, full of emotion. "My brother told us what you said to him back then," she began, her tone soft. "No soldier gets left behind, not while I'm breathing. Today, Gunnery Sergeant Bell, we finally honor that promise for you." A couple of weeks on, Arthur Bell faced a mirror. This new life still sinking in. He was in a small, clean apartment from a veterans housing program. Walls mostly bare, but for one frame, his new Distinguished Service Cross, beside his long-lost Purple Hearts and service medals. Hayes had found them, rescued from an old storage unit sold years back. A knock. He opened it to Eleanor Vance, out of her robes, just her, holding a little box. "May I come in, Gunnery Sergeant?" she asked. "Arthur, please," he smiled faintly. "Then it's Eleanor," she replied, entering. They sat in the simple living room, their shared history a quiet presence. "I brought something," Eleanor said, opening the box. Inside, worn letters, tied with string. "From Samuel. He wrote us every week." She gave one to Arthur. "This one's about you. Dated the day after you saved him." His hands shook a bit as he unfolded it. Samuel's writing, clear and sharp, just as he recalled. "Mom, Dad," Arthur read, his voice husky. "Don't fret over the news. I'm okay. Thanks to one of our NCOs. Gunnery Sergeant Bell did something. I still can't process it. When we were ambushed, he went through enemy fire like it wasn't there. Refused to leave me, even when I told him to. Said no soldier gets left behind, not on his watch." Arthur's voice broke. "He mentioned you a lot," Eleanor added softly. "Said you were the soldier he admired most." "He was a fine officer," Arthur said, his voice low. "Young, but he looked out for his men. That's not common." Eleanor glanced around. "After Samuel died, I went to law school. This veterans court, the housing program, it all grew from what he wrote, about the system failing its own." Arthur stirred. "I'm no hero, just did what I had to. That's what heroes always say." "Yeah." Eleanor smiled gently. She paused. "One more thing. The day Samuel died, he was leading a mission against insurgents who were hurting civilians. He volunteered. His last letter said he wanted to follow your example." That hit Arthur harder than any bullet. For 2 decades, he doubted, wondered if saving Samuel only delayed the pain, if it all meant nothing. "He didn't die because of you, Arthur," Eleanor said gently, seeing his thoughts. "He lived like he did because of you." They sat quietly, their lives linked by service, by loss. Snow started falling outside, soft, steady, blanketing the city. Finally, Arthur spoke, barely a whisper. "Years. Sleeping out there. I thought no one remembered, like it didn't matter." Eleanor nodded. "But it did, Arthur. To Samuel, to every soldier you saved. And to me." Standing to go, she touched his shoulder. "Samuel used to say, a soldier's true measure isn't what he does for show, but when no one is looking." She whispered, "You lived that, even when everyone forgot." Arthur seemed to stand taller, a quiet strength about him. "Someone remembered my name," he said softly, "after all this time." In that moment, something broken started to mend, not just in him, but for every forgotten soul who'd served. Some heroes save others, then wait a lifetime for someone to see them. Dignity doesn't always need a parade. Sometimes it just needs to be acknowledged.